do at the State Bar, and I do thank you from the bottom of my heart for that. This meeting is being live streamed on the State Bar YouTube channel. I must remind everyone of your duty under the North Carolina State Government Ethics Act to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts, and you're instructed to refrain from participating in any matter coming before this council today where you have a conflict of interest or an appearance of conflict. If any need to be noted at this time, please let me know. Otherwise, if at any time during this meeting a conflict, you recognize one, please let us know that as well. One order of business, so I won't forget, and Caroline won't start waving at me from back there, is if you attended the Lunch and Learn this week and you would like CLE credit, there is a form or a list in the back that you can sign, so please do that. All right, at this time, I will call on Nancy.
Thank you. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come before you with a grateful heart for a beautiful spring day. We are reminded that you have promised that when your people gather in your name, your presence is with us. Fix our eyes on you and let our ears be attentive to your voice. As always, we ask for your wisdom and your grace as we move forward with the business of the State Bar. Let us be reminded not only of our calling to the public and the profession, but the calling to come unto you. We hold up those among us who are struggling with health issues, especially our colleague Bert. We ask that your healing power descend upon them and allow them to join us in fellowship again. Shield us in your love and protection as we return to our homes and loved ones at the end of the day. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Matt. So we have some guests with us today that I would like to recognize. We're very happy to have a couple of our past presidents, Tony DeSandy and Ron Gibson. If you're in the back, you raise your hands. Everybody can be sure to give them a big old hug and welcome. We also have Clayton Morgan with the Bar Association president with us. Clayton, raise your hand. Welcome. And we have with us, of course, our Chief Justice Paul Newby, who's going to give us some remarks in a moment. We always love having him come and join us. And I believe Liz Henderson, is she with you today? Is General Counsel Liz. You're raising your hand. Hey, Liz, how are you? And Lucy Harrell is also assistant to the Chief Justice. Lucy, there you are. Hey, welcome. All right. At this time, Chief Justice Newby, if you could please come forward.
Thanks.
Again, thank you for coming, taking time to be here with us today.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. So I'm an old guy. I'm not quite as old as David Allen. Okay, just to be clear, he's got more hair, but I'm a little bit younger, and clearly not as old as Gordon Brady. Okay, but nonetheless, I do like a little bit of history. 248 years ago. Almost 250 years ago, 2 days ago, April the 14th, April the 19th, we celebrated once again the courage of the folks in Lexington and Concord as a bunch of farmers and merchants stood up against the greatest military in the world and fired the shot heard around the world. And it wasn't just a war for our independence. It was the idea that all are created equal, endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and government exists to protect and defend those fundamental rights. This was pre-Twitter days. They were all thankful. And it took an entire month for word of this to get back to North Carolina. But a group of citizens in Mecklenburg County on May the 20th of 1775 said, "A king that kills his subject is not worthy of our loyalty." And they declared their independence, the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence, the first declaration of independence of anyone in the colonies. About 8 months later, the British were considering landing in Wilmington. A group of patriots met some of the loyalists at the Battle of Morse Creek Bridge. The first North Carolinian gave his life for independence. And a few months later, on April the 12th, of 1776. Those two, May the 20th, is on our flag. April the 12th, Halifax resolves, the first meeting of a representative body. Our General Assembly met, and we instructed our delegates in Pennsylvania to vote for freedom. Ultimately, on July the 4th, they did. So this time of year, as we think about those days, hopefully we will reflect that some of the key complaints against King George had to do with he obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. We should be very grateful. Our profession should be very grateful that no longer are these obstructions to justice part of our system, and we are able to go into court. We are able to have impartial judges who will judge the merits of the claims before them, and then that we will have justice administered without favor, denial, delay. Appreciation. Y'all like to be appreciated? I do. I always am grateful when somebody has something nice to say about ways things may be going in their local courthouse or whatever. April 30th through May the 6th is Employee Appreciation Week. And May the 3rd is Employee Appreciation Day. One of the things that we've tried to encourage is for all of us in the profession to recognize how vital the unsung heroes of the courthouse are. Our magistrates, our bailiffs, our deputy assistant clerks, our court administrators, our court reporters, frankly, the custodian in our courthouses. All of these individuals are vital for us as we go into the courthouses and we pursue whatever claims may be there. I encourage you that during this week to think about how can I encourage my local courthouse folks because of the essential nature of what they do as we seek to administer justice. We have tried through the Chief Justice Commission on Professionalism to recognize every year we've started the Deputy Clerk of the Year Award, the Court Administrator of the Year Award. We're also recognizing professionalism with regard to assistant DAs and assistant public defenders. These folks are in public service, and we are grateful for that. As I work with my leadership at the Administrative Office of the Courts, I've asked them to try to recognize various awards that might be available for our employees, and to be sure that as they work hard to assist and equip the stakeholders in all 100 counties, that the 300 plus employees at the Administrative Office of the Courts are receiving that encouragement as well. And I'm pleased to recognize Elizabeth Kroon, who is the most recent recipient of the Ranger Barrett Award for Excellence in the Public Sector that is presented by the North Carolina Bar Association. It is awarded to attorneys in the public sector for exemplars in professionalism, excellence, dedication, and passion for justice. Just a word or two about Elizabeth. She is the legal counsel for the Human Trafficking Commission, the Equal Access to Justice Commission, the Innocence Inquiry Commission, the Dispute Resolution Commission, the Guardian Ad Litem Division, and other efforts across the branch. She assists in obtaining funding through various grants that are available. She is intricately involved in intergovernment data sharing agreements with DMV and SBI and Department of Revenue, local law enforcement. I mean, there's stuff that has to go on behind the scenes from a legal standpoint and our general counsel, Andrew Brown, nominated her, and she was recognized for that award. I am very proud of my employees. I know you're very proud of your employees as well. And frankly, I would argue that your staff, your employees are essential. And I think, again, part of professionalism is to recognize folks for the contribution that they make to the administration of justice, to your advocacy for your clients and what they do there. I hope you'll join me in recognizing our employees during that week, and certainly limit it just to that week. Court backlog. Thank you all, and please thank the attorneys in your areas for all that they've done. We are significantly lower with regard to case backlogs than we were prior to COVID. So if you take the numbers before we went into COVID, we went up significantly with COVID backlogs. Now we've had 25 straight months where we've had a decrease in the number of pending cases. So thank you, and thank your senior residents, your chief district court judges for all that they're doing with regard to the backlog. I truly believe justice delayed is justice denied. Certainly our Constitution says we're to administer justice without delay. I'm very, very gratified to see all the collaborative work that has gone into that. E-courts. Okay, it's a headache. I say that and I continue to. I mean, Tyler is able to do Los Angeles, and they're able to do New York City. I mean, come on. Our pilot districts are not nearly producing the volume that they're able to deal with. We have issues of slowness. I don't know. Come on, Tyler. You're a Fortune 500 company. Give us the resources that you promised us. All I can say is that our AFC director, Ryan Boyce, is doing a great job. He's established working groups of attorneys who have voiced concern in all the different pilot districts. We're obviously not going to take e-courts anywhere beyond our initial pilot district until Tyler works out all the kinks. So it's one of those things that we're extremely disappointed in Tyler, but we are continuing to incentivize by putting pressure on them every way we know how to live up to what they have told us. Anyway, the success of e-courts, we've had over 49,000 e-filings since go live. That has, don't know how many pieces of paper come from a tree, but we've saved somewhere close to 500,000 pages of papers being filed in our courts. Interestingly, as we predicted, public access has just exploded. 10,000 searches a day just in the pilot districts with regard to the public going on and looking at court records. Previously, these folks would have had to have gone down to the local courthouses to conduct those searches to figure out what was going on in their case. So anyway, we're grateful that the public is embracing the access to information that's part of e-courts, and hopefully, again, we continue to work with our amazing pilot county stakeholders as we work through the rough area. All I can do is ask for patience. With regard to kind of a couple of ideas going forward in the future, first, I'm so grateful to District Attorney Ben David and Chief District Court Judge Jay Corpening, as they, along with our former AFC Director Andrew Heath and Ryan Boyce, have headed up the ACES Task Force, Adverse Childhood Experiences, Adverse Childhood Environment. Certainly, we have recognized what, frankly, common sense would tell us, that children who are exposed to violence, whether as victims or being involved in the affray, that those will end up before our court system. How do we address that? How do courts deal with these kids that are having to address this post-traumatic stress and all the other things that are going on with having witnessed this type of violence. These are called ACES-informed courts, and we are working with all of our stakeholders to let them benefit from the work of this task force. We've had a multidisciplinary group across all the branches working together to figure out, how can we identify this trauma, and then once we do, how can we have our judicial, our DSS workers, our other folks that work with these injured young people, how can we better meet their needs? Folks, I'm gratified. We work with the Bulge Institute, who's been one of our sponsors in this program. They work with judges around the world, and weekly they tell me they're getting inquiries and asking us for some of the material that we've already produced here in North Carolina. We're not just a national leader, we're a worldwide leader in helping courts and court personnel and others better recognize the impact of trauma in young lives. Somewhat in line with that has to do with my emphasis on recovery courts. I mean, we just can't keep doing the same thing, expect different outcomes. Recovery courts, I think, provide us opportunities to try to address some of the root issues that are involved. And this past week, we had the first statewide conference of recovery court leaders, for first one in 5 years. We are seeking funding from the General Assembly, and they, at least the initial House budget, has the funding in there for us to do a statewide strategic plan study and try to figure out how to get uniform funding for recovery courts across the state, as opposed to just kind of spotty support that we get from various county commissioners and other interested groups within counties. We've already found some folks in the UNC system that are willing to help us collect the data, present the case to the General Assembly that this is a good public policy to pursue. And lastly, with regard to the House budget, of course, budgets, you never have any idea how they'll ultimately end up. The current budget is asking for a 7.5% increase over the next 2 years, very much needed across the branch as we seek to retain a great deal of expertise and experience when there's been a lot of competition, as you all well know, with regard to trying to retain employees. Also, we are, at least the House budget has 4 new public defender systems involved or funded in their program, as well as additional ADA funding, again, trying to address the challenges we have in the backlogs of the criminal justice system. So as you have ideas, please let us know. We love ideas, certainly. The more we work together to leave our profession better than we found it, the more we can collaborate, the better things will be. Again, I thank you for what you do. It's such an honor for each of you to be selected by your peers as their representatives in this august body. And thank you all for what you do to ensure that our profession is truly serving the needs of our public. And thank you for your assistance as we meet our constitutional directive to keep the courts open and to administer justice without favor or denial.
Thank you, Chief Justice. I'd also like to thank you before you leave for Jimbo Perry. So we are actually collaborating with the Chief Justice's Commission on Professionalism with our Access to Justice Committee on Legal Deserts and trying to help with that issue. So we appreciate you allowing Jimbo to work with us and us to hopefully help him to collaborate with you guys to help that very serious problem that we have in our state. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And let me just say very quickly, y'all have an amazing ambassador in your president. She is showing up at meetings that no state bar president has showed up in the past, and it's making a huge difference among all the stakeholder groups, the clerks, the court coordinators, court reporters, groups like that are grateful for her expression of appreciation from our profession for what they do. Thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you. Clayton. So we now have Clayton Morgan, who's the president of North Carolina Bar Association. Welcome, Clayton.
Thanks, President. I'm strong. Good morning, everybody. Pleasure to be before you again to give you an update on what's going on with the Bar Foundation Association. Handful of things. Start with the Bar Foundation. Back in January, I gave this group an update on the Open Door Fellowship. If you recall, that was the first ever of its kind fellowship that's funded by Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Endowment Fund. And it's designed to give two fellows the opportunity to experience the power of the association, if you will, and to open doors in their careers. We had 26 applicants from all the law schools to sign up for that fellowship. The committee met and narrowed it down to 5. We had 5 employers as well. So the employers interviewed with the 5 applicants, and 2 were selected because we only have funding for 2 this year. The first recipient is Tavaria Smith from North Carolina Central School of Law. She has an interest in civil rights law, and she's going to be fellowing with the North Carolina Innocence Inquiry Commission. Z Zhao is also the second recipient. She's a 1L at UNC School of Law. And she'll be interning with the local government federal credit union under Dr. Matthews, General Counsel. Z has an interest in corporate law. So the committee's next charged with meeting together to find the best fit for these 2 individuals when it comes to programming. We're going to have a lot of programming around the diversity, equity, inclusion piece and the association piece to give them the best experience possible. So stay tuned for that. And they're also going to be at our annual meeting in June. The second thing is the 4-All Service Day. That was held March 3rd. For a lot of you in this room who participated, and we appreciate that. We had 6,100 calls answered that day. The leading areas of interest were family law, housing, and employment. We also had about 100 attorneys and paralegals to help us out that day. Virtually, it worked wonderful. The Telltale software was great. But we also had 6 or 7 in-person sites around the state that helped us out, staffed at about 8 or 9 people per site. We kept it very small intentionally. So that was a successful day, and the public appreciated it. We're getting feedback on how well we did, but we hope to expand it a lot more next year. On the association side, 2 things. One concerns judicial independence. If you recall, back in the fall, I charged the JI committee with bringing to the Board of Governors by June a recommendation concerning judicial selection, the best method, if any. That committee, chaired by Judge Julia Mann, is hard at work. They've met 4 times, and 2 more times to meet. Past President Keith Cap of this state bar is a member of that committee. And we are touching all applicable stakeholders in our inquiry to determine if there can be a recommendation to the Board of Governors. So stay tuned about that in June. The other matter is the creation of an online judicial learning center. Chief Justice Newby is going to be part of that task force. I charged that task force in January. It's being led by your past president, Ray Wilson, and our past president as well. And it's going to have a lot of great participants. In addition to Chief Justice Newby, Chief Judge Stroud is also a participant, and about 5 or 6 others. The intent behind this is to create an interactive platform and a curriculum for elementary, middle, and high school students to learn about the proper role of the judiciary and how that should look. Because we think that there's a dearth, there's a gap between what's being taught in schools now and how we can supplement that to every student in the state. So I'm hopeful that committee will come out with some great recommendations. It's conceptual. The first part of this is conceptual. The actual platform piece will be dealt with later on in the year. So stay tuned for that. And I'm looking forward to a wonderful outcome concerning an online presence that the Bar Association can feel good about hosting. Lastly, annual meeting, June 22nd, 23rd in Wilmington. We're going to have some great programming for you, so please put that on your calendar. And this will be the last time that I present to this body as president of our association foundation. Our fiscal year ends in June, so President-elect Patty Ramsey will come before you in your July meeting. But I just want to take this opportunity to say that it's been a pleasure to get to know everybody. I'll still be around as immediate past president at your meetings. But it's been a pleasure, and any questions for me? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next presentation is Mary Irvine, the Executive Director for IOLTA. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, great, thank you. Good morning, and thank you, President Armstrong. I'm here today from North Carolina IOLTA, which is a philanthropic arm of the North Carolina State Bar. NC IOLTA provides access to justice in partnership with every lawyer across the state and about 80 banks to fund high-quality civil legal aid in North Carolina. We're working to create a state where all individuals, families, and children can access the services that they need and fairly navigate the justice system to have their needs met and their rights protected. I want to share just a few highlights from our team to date in 2023. As noted in the report, we closed the 2022 books with $7.7 million in income from participating banks. This surpasses the historical peak that was set last year. You all know the environment that we are in, which is not great for folks in some ways, but for our program, it means that we're able to bring in significantly more income than we have in years past to support the work that we do. It remains really important for us to continuously work with the banks to ensure that they're paying us a comparable rate on IOLTA accounts. And to that end, we engage in regular comparability compliance reviews with a goal of reviewing every bank at least once every 3 years. So we do that through those regular reviews, but we also use other tools to monitor their compliance on a monthly and quarterly basis. So they're hearing from us a lot right now. As rates go up, they're hearing from us, and they've really been responsive and have made a lot of adjustments in the rates in the past few months. So far this year, we've closed 7 of those full compliance reviews, and we have 5 that are pending. We're working to lift up our Prime Partner program as well in new ways, including ads that we put out regularly that recognize the banks that are providing a more favorable rate, and also the attorneys that are banking with those banks. In addition to releasing ads that highlight those banks, we're also working on additional resources and ways that we can support the banks for their efforts. Our current Prime partners include Bank of Oak Ridge, Blue Ridge Bank, First Capital Bank, Providence Bank and Trust, Roxborough Savings Bank, and Wells Fargo. If you bank with one of our Prime partners, I would really love to connect with you about ways that we can work together to recognize the efforts of these banks. And I mean that. Please send me an email. I would really love to connect with you and find ways to thank them. We have national contacts in some cases for these banks. We have more regional contacts. But it's also really important that the folks on the ground from the banks know that what they're doing is really making a difference. So we also continue to engage with our grantees and our other partners. While we learn a lot about grantees through the regular grant reports that they submit, we find that going out and spending time with them and connecting is really one of the best ways to learn about the work that they're doing and the ways that we can be supportive of them. So we've been on the road frequently this quarter to Wilmington, Durham, around Raleigh, Greensboro, visiting with grantees and hearing a little bit more about both programmatic and organizational updates. In the past 2 years, with increasing income, the board really acknowledging the continued volatility, and really that's the nature of our primary revenue source, as you know, has prioritized allocating funds back to our reserve, anticipating a time in maybe the months or the years to come when that revenue is decreasing for us again. So after our meeting this week, in addition to allocating funds to the reserve, the board also approved releasing another out-of-cycle grant opportunity. This is another way that we can provide a little bit more stability in the funding that we are distributing, so that we're not increasing regular grants, but we're using some of the additional funds to make specific investments in the programs, which are a little bit different than our regular grants that tend to support salaries and general operating support for the programs. So this new out-of-cycle grant opportunity will focus on recommendations that were developed last year by 4 working groups in response to the legal needs assessment. Those 4 working groups were focused on family law, legal services for immigrant populations, communications and outreach, and coordinated intake. So we anticipate being able to make some specific investments to really go to the barriers that were kind of the starkest from that legal needs assessment that was released a few years ago. Lastly, this is our 40th anniversary this year. The IELTS program was established in 1983, so it's been 40 years that IELTS has really spent partnering with banks and with the legal community to ensure greater access to legal services for individuals, families, and children. We are excited to spend this year thanking all of our partners, including this State Bar Council, for partnering with us, and we also want to spread the word about the impact that we can have together through the IELTS program. So lastly, I just want to share one little anecdote from one of our grantee partners about how the work that they do has changed the lives of a family. Luke is a young man who was represented by the Council for Children's Rights in a years-long custody battle. The services that were provided by the council supported the ability of Luke, his mother, and his sister to escape an abusive home and find stability. Advocates from the council represented Luke and his sister for many years through this process. In Luke's words, he said, "For the first time, someone outside of my mom was making sure our needs are being fought for. They spent countless hours trying to make sure that 2 kids would be okay." Luke is graduating from Oxford this year, and he spent last summer interning at the Council for Children's Rights to give back to the advocates who gave him so much as a young child. So I hope that you all are proud of this work and proud of the work that the legal aid programs are doing across the state to really make sure that access is a reality for those folks that need it. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate that. And we look forward to our partnership continuing with our Access to Justice Committee. And so thank you.
Thank you.
Warren, if you'd like to come forward and give us a report on LAP. Warren is the current chair of LAP.
Hello, thank you very much. I am here. Yesterday was my first meeting as the chair of the board, and we also welcome new member Takia Lewis Blaylock as our new counselor member, and also another board member, Bill Ingraham, who's a professional therapist. Tell you a few things about what Robin wants me to make sure that you hear, and then I'll probably add a couple things just because I'm me. LAP gave, given that we're in April, we just went through February and into CLE, we had, LAP actually gave 22 presentations in the past quarter, a whole lot. It had very successful minority outreach program conference, which they have done now, I think, 5-6 years, maybe more. And it's so successful, they've already scheduled it for 2024 at the McKinnon Center again. There were 400 attorneys and judges at that conference, very successful. They also had a women's helped host a women's conference up in, I think it was Virginia, with a couple other states. This was the second year in a row we've done that, and actually got a case or two out of that, and that continues to be very popular. They currently have 521 open client files, having opened 45 this past quarter, and also closed another 280 files. The psychological issues continue to outpace substance use issues. I've told you many times, Robin's told you many times, LAP is not just about substance use. In fact, at this point, it's as much about psychological use, if not more. One thing I learned very interesting yesterday is that should have been obvious to me, but when they talk about substance use cases or psychological cases, also often those cases check 2 or 3 boxes at the same time. There's lots of stuff going on with folks that is hindering their ability to practice, so they're really helping so many people with so many things. They have also continued, we had a very spirited and brainstorming session at the last quarterly meeting. Then we had, Robin got a group of stakeholders together to discuss sort of a coordinated response following an event like what happened in Goldsboro, the shooting at the law firm in Goldsboro back around Christmas of last year. horribly tragic and something that had happened for the first time in North Carolina. We learned a lot from that. LAP was very involved in being the first boots on the ground there to try to help folks deal with that. And we were trying to learn from that and got a lot of folks together and are working for to establish some sort of protocol that will include probably officers and all kinds of stuff. I won't get into that. I will encourage you to look for, I think in the next quarterly meeting, the quarterly journal, there'll be an article written by Kathy Killian and Robin discussing some of the things about what you can expect if you or your firm experience some tragedy similar to that throws things off, and just what to look for and how to take care of yourself and others. So that's still a work in progress, though, as far as the actual protocol, and I'll probably be reporting to you on that again in the future. Thank you very much. That's the report of the LAP board.
Thank you, and thanks to LAP, Robin and your staff and your board for all that you do. You're wonderful. All right, at this time, I would recognize Deputy Counsel Jennifer Porter to present a tender of surrender of license. Jennifer, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. You have in your materials the affidavit of surrender of Sean Dillenbeck, who is an attorney from Gastonia, licensed in 2009. He has admitted that he has misappropriated at least $38,500 of entrusted funds and has tendered his license. The affidavit does comply with the rules, and so it is my recommendation that you accept it and that you enter an order disbarring Mr. Dillenbeck and taxing him with the administrative fees and costs.
Okay, is there a motion? Is there a second? Second. Any discussion or questions for Jennifer? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Jen. All right, at this time, I'm sorry, Dorothy.
Madam President, I need to recuse from the matter of Charles Coots. I do have a conflict in it.
Okay, we'll note that in the minutes. Thank you, Dorothy. This time I would recognize Deputy Counsel Teresa Hale to present a tender of surrender of license. Morning, Teresa.
Good morning, officers and members of the council. You have in your materials the affidavit tendering the surrender of the law license of Charles Kuntz. Mr. Kuntz misappropriated entrusted funds totaling approximately $85,000 and engaged in multiple instances of neglect and dishonesty. I have examined the affidavit and in comports with the requirements of the rules. Accordingly, I recommend that the North Carolina State Bar Council accept the resignation of Mr. Kuntz in order that he be disbarred and taxed with administrative fees and costs.
Thank you, Teresa. At this time, is there a motion to accept the surrender and enter an order of disbarment for Mr. Kuntz? I'm sorry, did I hear that? No, speak up. All right, second? Second. All right. Any discussion or questions for Teresa? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. Okay, at this time, we recognize Deputy Counsel Thomas Crosby to present a tender of surrender of license.
Good morning, everyone. I have before you in your materials the affidavit of surrender of Ms. Odedere. She, in her affidavit, acknowledges that she assisted a suspended lawyer in the unauthorized practice of law. She made misrepresentations to State Bar in the course of a grievance investigation, violations of North Carolina rules of professional conduct, including rules 5.5, 8.1, 8.4C. The affidavit's in order. I ask, and that's the Office of Counsel's recommendation, the counsel on the enter an order accepting the affidavit of surrender, that she be disbarred from the practice of law, and the administrative fees and costs of this action be taxed against her.
Thank you. Tom, is there a motion to enter an order, accepting the surrender and enter an order of disbarment?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any questions of Tom? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Before we go any further, I'm sorry, Tessa, I mispronounced your name. Sorry about that. It's been a long week. All right. At this time, I would recognize Catherine G. Why is everybody giggling?
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, everyone. You have in your materials a report of the activities of the Office of Counsel during the preceding quarter. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Do you have a question, David?
Catherine did. I don't.
Okay, thank you.
That's all we have.
Thank you, Catherine. All right, now we're going to move on to our committee reports. But before we do that, just for a moment, I would think it's important for you to know what your officers do actually in between the sessions. Make sure that y'all know that we're earning our keep. And many of you may not know that every year the president gets to choose 4 districts that we go to present CLEs with the staff. And we try to go to districts where we haven't been to in a while, and also, geographically diverse. So since our January meeting, the officers and staff have presented CLEs in Wilkes County and in Onslow County. And those are wonderful. We enjoy those, very well received, and I do appreciate the counselors for those, Jay and Kevin, for all that you did to make us feel welcomed and have a nice dinner for us while we were there. So we did that. We also, the officers and Peter attended the National Conference of Bar Presidents mid-year meeting in New Orleans. In February, I was invited by Robin to make remarks at the Minority Outreach Conference for LAP in Raleigh, so we did that. In March, I went to the Clerk of Courts Conference in Cary and basically took a thank you from our bar for all that they do, and that I was very well received, so that I enjoyed that very much, and I learned a lot more about clerks than I ever knew. It was nice. There was also a couple of DSA presentations. David Freeman's was presented in March, and I believe it was Carmen, Peter, Brian, and others attended that, and was very moved, I think, by that presentation. I had the honor of presenting the DSA award to Robin Stinson in Winston a few weeks ago. She's a dear friend of mine, been a family employee forever, and a great person, so that was special for me. Darren, during his time as president, sort of established or started an annual meeting with the past bar presidents, which has been great. And we had that second annual luncheon in Winston-Salem this year. And it's a great opportunity for current leadership to learn from past leadership, and that's always, it was great. Enjoyed that. And then Nat and Alice attended the ABA Bar Leadership Institute in Chicago. It is historical for the vice president to attend that, and so we appreciate Matt and Alice representing our state bar at that. So we we do try, it's a challenge at times. We try to be good ambassadors for the state bar when we're out and about in between our quarterly meetings. And we felt that it's important that you know some of the things that are going on in between the times that we're here. All right, moving right along to the executive committee report. Then if you would, the first order of business, of course, would be the approval of the minutes. So is there a motion that the minutes of the meeting on January the 20th of 2023, those minutes be approved?
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next would be the presentation of the Finance and Audit and Appointments Advisory Committee from Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, everyone. The Finance and Audit Committee met on Tuesday, and the Appointments Advisory Committee met on Wednesday, and they did their usual good work. And so I want to make some presentations to you based on the work of those two committees. First, the Finance and Audit Committee. And so upon the recommendations of the Finance and Audit Committee, I've got several motions for you from the Executive Committee. The first is a motion of the Executive Committee to approve the first quarter 2023 financial statements.
Okay. Are there any questions? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The next motion of the Executive Committee is to accept and approve the 2022 audited financial statements, which were in your materials.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The next is a motion of the Executive Committee to approve an increase in the annual dues for certified paralegals from $50 to $75.
Any questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And the final recommendation from the Finance and Audit and two from the Executive Committee is a motion to approve the policy for managing the reserve fund for unseen repairs and maintenance to the building and the State Bar's IT infrastructure.
Okay. Any questions? Not all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Right, from the Appointments Advisory Committee, have the following motion to the council through the Executive Committee, and the first relates to the DHC, and the motion is to reappoint Brian Beverly and Irvin Joyner to second 3-year terms, and to reappoint DeWitt Mac McCauley to his first full 3-year term.
Any questions? Not all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The next motion relates to the Grievance Resolution Board, and the motion is to recommend to the governor the reappointment of Robert E. Campbell to another 4-year term on that board, and that information for that board is also in your materials.
All right, any questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Relatedly, the bar typically assists the governor in making appointments to this board by sending over 10 names, if so requested. So the next motion relates to that, since we're sending over the name of Mr. Campbell. And the motion is to authorize the officers to identify 9 other candidates for appointment should such a list be requested by the governor's office.
Okay, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That concludes my report.
Thank you, Todd. Appreciate it. All right, next we're moving on to motions to approve these are for publication. First, we have proposed amendments to the rules of professional conduct, Rule 1.08. That comes from motion from the executive committee, so we don't need a second. All right, any questions? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The next proposed amendments to the rules governing the continuing legal education program, Rule .1520, .1522, .1525. Any questions? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, rules for publication, amendments to the rules governing the specialization program. These are rules .1723, .1725, and .3407. Anyone have any questions? Not. All those in favor of publication of those amendments, if you would say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The next proposed amendments to the discipline and disability rules, Rule .0113. Are there any questions? If not, all those in favor of publication, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, proposed amendments to the rules governing the continuing legal education program. This was from the supplemental agenda from the executive committee, and that rule is .1517. Again, this is for publication. All right, any questions? All those in favor, aye. Say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. The next on the agenda are the motions to adopt proposed rule amendments and transmit to the Chief Justice and Supreme Court for approval. These rules, first, are proposed amendments to the rules governing the continuing legal education program. And the motion is for approval of the new rules, .1501 through .1527, which also requires a deletion of rules .1601 to .1606. Any questions? Not. All those in favor of submitting those to the Chief Justice for adoption, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, so I believe we have some committee reports at this time, and I would first recognize Matt Smith, Chair of the Access to Justice Committee. Matt.
Thank you, Madam President. The Access to Justice Committee met Wednesday afternoon. We had a presentation from Joshua Weaver of the Texas Opportunity and Justice Incubator. Texas has been working on this model for a few years, and we decided to pick his brain and do a little plagiarizing, if we can, of their program. If you were not part of the committee, by all means, please look on the YouTube channel to watch it. We also heard from Jimbo Perry, who's part of the Chief Justice's Commission on Professionalism. And as I said at the meeting, if you've been around Jimbo, you let Jimbo speak last because he'll embarrass the rest of us. So do watch Jimbo. We are working very closely with the Commission on Professionalism to work on legal deserts and other things. Speaking of legal deserts, they've met. We didn't have a lot of time to talk about their subcommittee, but they continue to meet. And the Unbundled Legal Services Committee has also met. So hopefully we will be bringing some action items in the next couple of meetings before executive and as well as this council.
Thank you, Matt. There's a lot more to come. There's a lot of work to do, and so there's this idea that we need to bring on a lot of stakeholders together. In addition to the Chief Justice Commission on Professionalism, we got NC Lee, IOLTA, Legal Services, and other groups that are also, the Bar Association, they're also studying the very same issues we are. So we're hoping to get together some type of a summit or something where we can all get together in the same room and see how we can all help each other. All right, thank you, Matt. Next, I believe, Rich, are you administrative?
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, folks. The Administrative Committee had a marathon session this Wednesday, and we are making the following recommendations to the entire council. We're asking that 53 lawyers be transferred to an active status, 6 with requirements, 4 non-pro-tunc to 2022. We granted 20 petitions for reinstatement from an active status, 2 with financial requirements or COE requirements. We granted the petitions for 4 out-of-state lawyers that will be doing pro bono work under a recognized legal aid agency of this state. We are asking that 7 notices to show cause for fees be issued and 34 suspension orders be issued for their membership or CLE noncompliance. You will receive an updated list for members that will be ordinarily receiving the show cause notices or the suspension orders. Please reach out to the members in your district, encourage them to get on the path of righteousness. It makes a lot less work for members of the staff and less work for us when we're dealing with the petitions for reinstatement that we will inevitably receive. And that is the news from the Administrative Committee.
Are there any action items that you need us to? Okay, so is there a motion to approve the entire report? Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any questions or discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you, Rich. Appreciate your committee's work. All right, next we have Bobby in authorized practice. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, everyone. The Authorized Practice Committee met Wednesday morning. We are grateful, as always, for the good work of Savannah and David that makes the committee's work very efficient, particularly for this meeting. As most of you know, David has plans for this to have been his second to last quarterly meeting with us. There may be other plans for David, and if David, you're listening, emphasis on yes. The minutes are in your council materials, the highlights for a quick summary. There were no new prepaid legal plans submitted this quarter. We had 17 items for action by the committee, and the committee voted to issue 11 letters of caution, voted to dismiss 3 matters, and it took no action on 3 other matters. However, one of those matters was referred to the district attorney, and another of those matters was referred to the Department of Insurance. And that is the report of the Authorized Practice Committee for this quarter.
Okay, there are no action items on this?
I don't know where David is. I would do a motion to accept the report.
Okay.
Just make sure we have that.
Well, just to make sure it's covered, we'll do a motion to accept the report from the Authorized Practice Committee. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you, Bobby. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so next we have Anna Hamrick, Chair of the Communications. Good morning, Anna.
Good morning.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, everybody. First of all, again, much like Bobby just thanked the hard work of the State Bar Council members, I'd like to thank Peter and Brian for all the work they do for the Communications Committee. They really put it together and streamline things. One thing that I would like to request that everyone do is to look at the template that Peter and Brian did that you can use to send out like a newsletter to your local members if you'd like to give them your own perspective on what the council does on a quarterly basis. That might make it easier for you. One action item we did, which I guess we need to vote on, is that the committee voted to no longer print the lawyer's handbook every year. Last year, apparently, we printed 500 copies, and it cost about $17,000, and
only distributed about 250. Those were given out to the bar counselors, DHC, new lawyers, and then I guess anybody who asked for one. So we voted to no longer print that, except that if someone really does want one, a printed version, that the bar can do that in-house to a great savings. It will also be online. You can print it yourself if you prefer to just peruse it in a paper version. We talked about the website, and we're looking for a vendor to do that. And so we had some survey questions that we thought would be useful to send out to the members of the bar about what they might like to see in a website, and also just how they use the website. But the survey has not been developed or finalized, but the questions are in there. If you want to look in your materials and edit some questions, give us some new suggestions, please let us know. The survey won't go out until we get a vendor who's going to do the website, but we figure we may as well work on some ideas that might be useful to ask our membership. Lastly, we talked about message mapping, and Peter and Brian had written a draft message map as a sample that would, and message mapping is sort of a talking points way for the bar to respond in a cohesive manner to questions that you may get. Different counselors get questions from either other lawyers in the bar or just members of the public. It's a way for the bar to put together sort of a consistent way that you might want to respond to that. So the one that Peter and Brian developed there's a version that's what does the bar do that's meant for members of the bar, other lawyers, how we're self-regulating. We want to maintain that as opposed to allow that to be taken away, but that does require us to be able to do certain things to make sure that we protect the public, which is our main goal. And then there's a version that's for the public to sort of explain what the state bar is. So if you find yourself having been asked questions about anything to do with the state bar, that you would like more guidance on how to answer, let us know so we can maybe help develop future message mapping ideas for that. So we'd love to hear that. And then finally, and this is sort of communications adjacent, but I know that the next meeting is going to be in Asheville, which is where I live. And so communicate to me any questions you may have about places to eat, things you'd like to do. I'd like to try to put together a list and help everyone have a fun time there. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Anna. So we do need a motion to, to stop printing the handbooks. Do we need a motion? Okay. All right. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We look forward to going to Asheville.
Thank you. All right. Thank you all.
All right. Catherine. We have Catherine Fry, the Chair of Ethics. Good morning, Catherine.
Good morning. So like many of the presentations before me, I want to make sure to thank Ethics Council and staff. In the last quarter, they provided 14 CLE presentations. The Ethics Hotline answered 1,197 calls. Also like to recognize Ann Parkin. I don't know if she's here, but she performed random audits on districts 1 and 31. And if you all will please, 41% failed to maintain clear copies of checks or the right size. That's one certainly everyone can go home and talk to people about and make sure that that's corrected. And if you are lucky enough to be in District 15 or 33, you will have a random audit coming your way. As far as action items, we have proposed 2023 FEO 1 regarding the sale or closure of a law practice and proper handling of aged client files. The opinion is in your materials. It was published during the past quarter and we received 0 comments. And so the Ethics Committee is recommending the Council adopt proposed 2023 FEO 1.
Thank you, Catherine. Do we have a motion for the adoption of 2023 FEO 1?
I move to adopt.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, there's a question. Well, that's next. Are there questions?
No, I'm just seconding it.
Oh, you were seconding it. Okay. We have 2 seconds. All right. Thank you. Any questions or discussion? Not. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Is that it, Catherine? Thank you very much. All right, moving right along, we have Kevin Williams, the Chair of Grievance. Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Madam President. Consistent with everyone else's comments, special thanks to Catherine Jean and the Office of Counsel for keeping the trains running on time. An extra special thank you to Heather Ruth, who just does a remarkable work for the Grievance Committee. Between January and this meeting, 80 files were dismissed by the chair, 21 dismissed by the chair and vice chair, 7 dismissed and retained, 1 file was abated. Total for the quarter, including our meeting on yesterday, 109 files were dismissed, 7 files were dismissed and retained, 1 file was abated, 1 file was continued. There were no lawyers referred to the Lawyers Assistance Program. 2 lawyers were referred to the Trust Accounting Compliance Program. 5 lawyers received letters of caution, 8 lawyers received letters of warning, 3 lawyers received admonitions, 3 lawyers received reprimands, and 8 lawyers were referred to the Disciplinary Hearing Commission. So in total, there were 164 items considered this quarter. Also in February, we had 4 grievance review panels that met, and upon the recommendation of the grievance review panels, 2 items were considered by the grievance committee yesterday. 1 file previously issued a reprimand was changed and issued an admonition. 1 file previously issued a reprimand was referred to the Lawyers Assistance Program. And then we also have 4 grievance review panels meeting today. So we'll be meeting grievance review panels at 11, 12, 2, and 3. And a special thanks to those of you who have been willing to say yes to serve on those grievance review panels. It's a special calling, and special thanks to Bobby Bowers. There are certain files that I'm conflicted out of because the discipline came out of the subcommittee that I chaired. And so I've appointed Bobby Bowers to chair 2 of the grievance review panels in February and 2 today. So thanks everybody for your willingness to help. That's the report of the grievance committee.
Thank you, Kevin. And we really need to thank Kevin because he has done a fabulous job. He's the first to have to deal with the review panels, and he's doing a really good job, as well as all the subcommittee chairs. I really appreciate all the hard work that you guys are doing. Thank you.
And I would be remiss if I didn't say thanks to Gordon, Walter, and Andrea, who are the chairs of the subcommittee. So
yes, you are doing a great job. Thank you so much. All right, next, Darren, issues.
In keeping with thanking staff, I just want to say, Brian, Peter, y'all can do better. Just felt the love, The Issues Committee met. We have 3 issues that you already know about. The first one is random audits. We're reviewing the random audit trust accounts program that we have to see if any changes need to be made. That hasn't been overhauled in many years. We're also studying diversion programs, items that might keep lawyers, give them an avenue not to go through the grievance process. And also we're looking at the study of succession planning and whether or not the state bar needs to have some sort of program or some avenue for attorneys to look forward and make plans on how they will either shut down their law firm or someone else will shut down their law firm. These 3 subcommittees are currently being chaired by Barbara Christie, is chairing the Random Audit Trust Accounts Program Subcommittee. Walter Brock is doing this study for diversion programs, and Ashley Campbell is looking at the study of the succession plannings. All of those subcommittees have met between the January meeting and this meeting, and sort of have gotten a foundation with education about what's in place now, if anything, and what's in place in other places. It is our hope that between now and the July meeting that they will probably have a couple of Zoom meetings to get better education and maybe even get information where they can maybe come to us in July with some recommendations, or at least some starting to get some recommendations about how we can proceed. So thank you.
Thank you, Darren. All right. Kurt Warner, Vice Chair. Oh, Mike, you're going to do it, Mike? Okay.
I'm here today.
Okay. You didn't look like Kurt. Hey, Mike.
Nice.
Give us a lamp report.
Consider that a compliment. And I want to thank Kurt for handling this last meeting. Believe me, I would a whole lot rather been here than where I was, which was in a Columbus County courtroom watching my client get sentenced to death. I want to thank Kurt for doing that. I want to thank Jennifer Porter for being our staff liaison. LAMP is a kind of a unique situation because we got so many moving parts. A lot of the members, the advisory members, are active military folks, so they're here today and they're gone tomorrow. So trying to get these people in one spot is like, again, proverbial herding cats. And if you don't know, the LAMP Committee is the largest assistance for military personnel. It was established by the State Bar a number of years ago because of the large numbers of military personnel that called North Carolina home for at least a month or two, sometimes longer. Plus, we have two of the largest military bases in the country, and I think the most military personnel other than the state of Texas. And we talked about this is really some real scintillating stuff. North Carolina taxation of service members' car leases, divisibility of military medical retirement pay in divorce cases, and indemnification clauses in military divorce settlements. So this is some good stuff. So if you're ever in the area, stop by and participate with us in our meeting. We are also in the works of planning another CLE. The last one went off real well. It was in conjunction with UNC Law. This was going to be in conjunction with Wake Forest Law, who's volunteered to host that for us. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, and your committee. It's very important work that you're doing. All right, Warren, you can come up and give us a report of the Distinguished Service Awards Committee.
Madam President, before I go into closed session, just wanted to recognize Suzanne Lieber. Once again, she's just been great for our committee and keeps us on task and efficient, and is as enthusiastic about the award as everybody else is. I also wanted to report on two presentations that we made last quarter. That David Friedman was awarded, or his family was awarded the DSA that we gave to David in February, and that was a very touching service at his temple, and I wanted to take the opportunity to thank everybody in this room, especially staff. It was a great show of support by the State Bar staff. I think there were somewhere between 12 and 15, maybe more, staff people that went to all the way to Winston-Salem on a work day to recognize, and I know there would have been more if they could have been there. So that was really great. Catherine Jean Carmen spoke on his behalf, and Barbara Christie submitted gave him the award. That was great. I'd also like to thank Marcy. We had another Distinguished Service Award presentation for Robin Stinson in Winston-Salem. Marcy was the presenter there. Robin's family was there, and that was a beautiful presentation too. We have an upcoming presentation on June 14th for Ricky Bowman in Surrey County. Tom Langen, are you here, Tom? There he is. Put together that nomination. I'm sure he's putting together that presentation. If you could be there, be there. They're great and they're really fun, especially to see how these people are recognized by their local district bar. And with that, I would like to go into closed session pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A2 to prevent the premature disclosure of an honorary degree, scholarship, prize, or similar award.
Thank you. Is there a second? Yes. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
All good. All right.
You're good? Okay.
Madam President, at this time, I'd like to advise that the committee is moving with the approval of the executive committee, that the council approve the nominations of the two lawyers, candidate A and candidate B, that we discussed in closed session for the presentation of the John B. McMillan Distinguished Service Award, subject to our standard due diligence checks.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion, questions? Not all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and keep those nominations coming.
Yes, I was going to say that, yeah. Okay, so again, sign up if you haven't signed up for the CLE. Leave your badges and your name things. Is there any other business? If not, safe travels home. Thank you again. We will see you soon.